Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live. Today, my name is Dr. Peter A. James. Actually, every day, my name is Dr. Peter A. James, and I'm so glad to be your primary host for today's session where we dive into this phenomenal text, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. But you and I are not alone with this text. We have some phenomenal co-hosts that are going to be joining me to have this dialogue. We have a very special guest this morning who's going to also give us some details about how she has been able to utilize this text and the chapter that we're going to be going into today, the principle of the brain. I could go on and talk about what this book means to me, how Think and Grow Rich has changed my life, but I don't even want to just do this all by myself out the gate. I want to go ahead and bring in our distinguished co-host. Let's start out with the man, the myth, the legend, Galen Bingham. Galen, good morning to you, sir. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. The myth. Oh my gosh. I was believing all those myths. Oh my God. This is going to be an incredible show. I am so excited about this conversation. I'm excited about this guest. And, one of the things that I just picked up in the text as I was preparing is that most of the valuable things that we get from this, most of the valuable forces are intangible. And the brain is the receiving station for all of those intangible broadcasting messages that we get. So this is going to be really, really important. We have our brains with us all the time. At least most of us have our brains with us most of the time, but we don't use it to its fullest potential. And I can't wait for this conversation with Dr. Mia so that we can get her insights as to not only how we could use our brain more fully, but how she does it to do all of the things that she's accomplished. Let's get into this. I can't wait.
Let's jump on in, Galen. You're right. Some people use their brain more than others. We're hoping that after today's show, we are figuring out more ways to apply our brain to almost every single session, every single day, every single thing that we do. Let me stop talking. Let me bring in our next guest for sure. Excuse me, our next co host, who will be a young lady who will go by none other than one name. Pegeen, can you grace us with your presence?
I am here. I am ready. And I'm so excited to be with both of you. I love that we're here together. I love the brain. One of the things that this particular chapter shares and says that I am loving is this message. Vibrations of exceedingly high rate are the only vibrations picked up and carried by the ether from one brain to another. Thought is energy traveling at an exceedingly high rate of vibration. And we are creating big, bold, amazing vibration. We come in with such joy to be here. And for me today, to be talking about vibration through the brain, creating this excitement, this is all of us being co-creators of something magnificent. We have Dr. Merritt, but we also have Galen and Peter. And of course, we have the fantabulous Anne who comes in and with her pulsating vibration, we tend to all be elevated. So this is going to be off the charts, as Galen says. Amazing program. I cannot wait, and I can't wait for you all to meet Dr. Mia Merritt.
It's going to be so exciting. We're going to dive on in there, Pegeen, talk about this brain, this nugget that we have on top of our bodies here. We're going to utilize it to the best. Let's bring out Miss Fantabulous today, the master wealth builder, Anne McNeil. And good morning to you. How are you doing today? How is your brain functioning today?
I'm still on the pulsating vibrations. I know some of you were thinking it, so I just said it. Good morning, Anne McNeil, the master wealth builder, helping you to build a stronger and better life and business. And again, I'm excited to be here today talking about the pulsating vibrations of your brain, because you see, your brain is both a receiving and a sending station. And as I was preparing for this program today, it dawned on me, and I never really thought about it as we talked with Mia, excuse me, Dr. Merritt, that when you think about the fact that the subconscious mind is receiving from the conscious mind, your brain, but the brain is actually sending to your creativity the thoughts, the hunches as it receives, but what are you doing with that? And so, as we talk about these vibrations, whether they're positive or negative, we're going to get into some deep conversation. So, just hold on as we bring on our special guest and have, I think, one of the most exciting programs we've ever brought to you. So, back to you, Peter.
And what I love about this brain chapter is it connects to all the other chapters very, very well, whether it's the subconscious, whether it's, the desire, whatever the case may be, the brain seems like it's like right in the midst of all of that. And yes, I love these pulsating vibrations that go along with the brain conversation. And I would be remiss if I did not talk and mention all of you, our audience members, our participants. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So excited to have you. Please jump in. Let us know who you are. Give us your questions. Give us some comments as you reflect on this principle, this brain. And here's our question of the day. And the question of the day talks about the brain relative to this Think and Grow Rich text. And the question is, the brain principle is the fourth step to riches. True or false? The brain principle is the fourth step to riches. True or false? So we'll reveal the answer in just a little bit of time, but I would like you all to be able to reflect on that. But let me segue right now and to bring in someone whose brain is so phenomenal. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about this phenomenal woman's brain here. Dr. Mia Merritt was born and raised in Miami, Florida, and matriculated in the Miami-Dade County Public School System. She is an educator with over 26 years experience as a teacher, administrator, college professor, educational consultant, curriculum developer, subject matter expert, and professional development trainer. She is a certified keynote speaker, teen youth facilitator, seminar trainer, prosperity coach, and author. Listen, she has been a former radio host. She's published and authored 17 books, awards, certificates galore, and last but definitely not least, a bachelor's degree, 2 masters, and a doctorate in in organizational leadership. Wow, what a mouthful. Dr. Mia Merritt, good morning to you. How are you doing this morning?
I am doing wonderful. Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here.
Mia, I went into so much detail talking to the audience about all your accolades. Give us a high level picture of how you were introduced to Think and Grow Rich, this text by Napoleon Hill, if you could.
I was introduced to Think and Grow Rich by Anne McNeil. I don't know if you all realize this, but every person she meets, she introduces them to Anne McNeil. So about 27, 28 years ago, when I met Anne and I became a part of her MasterMind women's group, the first book that I needed to read in order to be a part of MasterMind was Think and Grow Rich.
Of course. And listen, I think that's so many individual stories, but thank you so much for acknowledging our revered master wealth builder for sure. This Think and Grow Rich text that we dive into is going to be really insightful today as we really extrapolate what the brain is, how we utilize it, how we could better utilize it. But before we dive in a little bit deeper, Galen, I want to bring you back in and ask you a little bit about this text in depth, these principles, these chapters, and why they are so important for us to be able to understand.
Yeah, one of the things that I really enjoy about this text is the fact that there are so many individual nuggets. I mean, every time I pick up my book, it's funny to me how I can pick up my book and read something and feel like I'm reading it for the first time because, I'm convinced that it wasn't there before. It's got to be there. Someone has to be sneaking into my study and sneaking in these words. And so that's one piece of it that I really enjoy. The other thing that I really appreciate is how everything builds on one another. Everything connects to each other. And if you take a look at this video and just think about how, yeah, we're going to be talking specifically about the brain, but think about how this connects with all the other principles that Napoleon Hill has compiled, and how this really does work as a success formula to help you achieve anything that you truly, truly desire. Let's go ahead and take a look at this.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the MasterMind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Good stuff, good stuff. Those 13 principles. And we were also able to answer our trivia question for today. And thank you, Dr. Raquel, and thank you, Doretha, for addressing those questions, the answer to the questions in the chat. Please continue to bring in your questions, your comments as we reflect on the brain today. I'm going to bring Ann McNeil in sooner rather than later and switch things up a little bit. But before I do, I want to read this quote from the brain chapter. And it says, under the right circumstances, and in a fashion that may be likened to that employed by the radio broadcasting principle, every human brain is capable of picking up thought impulses which originate in the brain of others. And I think this is why it's so important to be able to surround ourselves with like-minded individuals who are on the same trajectory so that we can pick up powerful brain impulses. And I know that you have a beta program going on for mastermind groups so that they can continue to do this more and more. So can you tell us a little bit about that? And then can you go ahead and start off with our first question to Dr. Merritt?
Thank you. Absolutely. We, the International Mastermind Association, are creating a beta test group wherein we are creating best practices for masterminders. And I think all of us have heard about a mastermind group, what it is, what it's not. Is it for fee or is it free? Well, join us by going to internationalmasterminders.com/group mastermind, and you can participate in our mastermind beta test. If you are currently in a mastermind group, now, if you're interested in starting a group or getting into an existing group, you can speak with any of our co-hosts. But this group is for mastermind individuals to talk about best practices, or maybe you've been in a mastermind group before and you found that some things work well, some things don't. I call it the good, the bad, and the ugly. And so we're going to be discussing that. So just go to that link and you can register to join us on the 16th of November. The details are there. Thanks.
Good stuff there, Ann. Don't go away yet though, because you got your good friend here, Dr. Mia. We're going to have you start off our questions today about the brain, about Think and Grow Rich. I think you can probably just start off with whatever you want to ask Dr. Mia today.
Oh my goodness gracious. That's an open-ended question. Dr. Merritt, could you share with us, would you prefer to be called Mia or Dr. Merritt? Let me do that first.
You can call me Mia.
Okay, great. All right, Mia, can you share with our listeners and our co-hosts your first experience as a masterminder? And I think that helps to set the stage of what we're going to discuss, because many people have never heard of a mastermind group. They don't really know how to utilize this brain concept we're talking about. And as you know, we talk about when we were masterminding together for all of those years. And I want to let the audience know, whenever you've heard me talk about our mastermind group, Dr. Mia was one of those individuals as our founding members. When I talked about meeting every single Saturday at 7 a.m. for 10 straight years, and we would rotate each other's homes. And Mia was there. We've met at her home and many others. And so what I'd like to have you do, though, Mia, is talk about the power of your brain and how this particular book, but more specifically, this principle, and how you began to learn how to use it to earn.
Okay, that is a loaded
I know,
question.
I know. Anywhere you want to go with it, Mia, I'm good with that.
Definitely a loaded question. I don't know how much power my brain has, but I can tell you to answer your first question, being a part of MasterMind really did change the trajectory of my life, because I think as individual professionals, we all have goals and plans that are in our minds and things that we want to achieve. But it's not until you start masterminding when you're able to see the crystallization of the things that are in your mind. So you're pulling those goals and aspirations out of your mind on paper. So to be able to set goals and then attach action plans to those goals and then attach timelines to those action plans. And then as a result of being a part of a mastermind group, you're now adding that element of accountability to it. You are more inclined to accomplish your goals than you were prior to doing all of those steps. So masterminding is a way whereby a person is able to see the goals that they have and constantly work towards those goals, as long as they keep them in the forefront of their mind on a daily basis by looking at them on paper. The second part of that is when you meet with your mastermind group, you are accountable to all of these people, because these are the people that you have stood in front of and you've said, I am going to accomplish this, that, and the other, and I am going to do it by applying this, that, and the other to what I've already stated that I was going to do. And I am going to accomplish this or these goals by this particular date. So you've stood in front of these people and you've proclaimed that this is what you were going to do. So when you meet with your mastermind group, everyone is waiting to hear how close you are, how much progress you've made, how far you have come towards the accomplishment of your goals. So being a part of a mastermind organization has assisted me in accomplishing so many goals this particular way. Now, as it relates to the brain and the mind, there is a clear distinction between the two. And I think these two terms are used interchangeably. We use the word brain and we use the word mind interchangeably. However, they are not the same. And I don't think many people really stop to consider how different they are. The brain is actually an organ, which is matter. And we learned in school that matter is something that you can touch or feel. The brain is that part of the central nervous system that includes all of the higher nervous systems enclosed within your skull, which is continuous with your spinal cord. The biggest part of the brain is the cerebrum, which actually makes up about 85% of the brain's weight. And the cerebrum is the thinking part of the brain. The mind is not something that you can touch or feel. The mind is not matter. The mind cannot be located anywhere in your body. So if your body were to be cut open, we can see and feel and touch your mind. A doctor can, your brain. A doctor can see and feel and touch your brain, but a doctor cannot see or feel or touch your mind. It is spiritual. It is invisible. So with that being said, I think it's important to understand that the mind is actually that invisible element that enhances the brain through thought instead of the brain making thought. It's the mind that enhances the brain. The brain is only the instrument of the one who thinks, just like a piano is the instrument of the one who plays. A piano just sitting alone will not play by itself. Just like the brain in and of itself alone will do nothing without the thought of the thinker. So when you were born, the record in your brain was blank. The mind is totally independent of the brain, but it molds the brain just as a potter molds clay. So when you were born, your subconscious, your mind actually connected to your brain. There was no record on there. But when your mind connected to your brain, there was a formula that was in that mind, and nobody knew what you were going to actually become. So within your mind was your personality, a particular formula, and a seed that was actually to make you into the person that you are today. So with that being said, when it comes to the brain, it is the thinker that makes the brain. So whatever your goals and your aspirations and your desires are, you feed those desires into your conscious mind, which actually passes over into your subconscious mind.
Thank you so much for that clarification. And wow.
Yeah, I just want to add this. Everything she just described helps us to begin from a foundational perspective. It helps us all to begin to understand why autosuggestion and the repetition is so very important to program your mind. And when you think about the brain, and I think it was Napoleon Hill and Gates talked about when they realized, as they all talked, Edison, Gates, and Hill talked about, wow, now we are beginning to understand from a pictorial way, a radio station, if you will, a broadcasting station, this instrument Mia is talking about, both sends and receives vibrations. Signals. And when we begin to understand that, we're sending out as much as we're receiving, and it needs to be positive. This is why advertisers are paid not millions, not billions, but trillions of dollars to program us. But we can bring the others in and really get into this dialogue, because this is really deep when you really begin to understand yourself. That's what this is about. This is about you and how you think, and how do you learn how to utilize your brain.
Yeah. I love this. I love the differentiation. Thank you so much there, Mia, about really drawing the line in the sand to a certain extent between the brain and the mind. And I'm going to ask Pegeen to come on in and enter into this conversation about the brain, about Think and Grow Rich. And Pegeen, what questions might you have for Mia, as she has really given us a nice detailed analysis of this delineation?
Well, I'm so happy to hear your words of wisdom, Mia, and for everybody watching to really be able to understand this awareness. Your statement of the mind is totally independent of the brain. However, it molds the brain. And Dr. Mia, so I'm going to ask you a couple of, you're an educator, you're a not only are you an educator, you're a leader, and that teaches leadership in terms of education. I know for myself that it took a long time for me to change the thoughts in my mind that would influence my actions and my brain. So if, one of the things that's happening in school systems now, they're finding that meditation is a great reducer of violence and an increaser in terms of success for all students. It doesn't matter the student, but that sense of meditation. Can you talk to the power of meditation, the power of how that influences the thoughts and the training of the brain that you're going to receive from infinite intelligence, what your true gifts are? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. And it goes back to what Ann basically stated as it relates to us being very careful about the thoughts that we feed into our mind. When it comes to meditation, it goes right back to repetition, because if you think about a child or even yourself, we learn through repetition. When you are in elementary school or in the kindergarten, first grade, when you're first taught your colors, when you're first taught your letters, the teacher doesn't teach you the colors in one day and then moves on into the next subject. You have to constantly repeat that information to the children so that that information is passed over from not only their eyes and their ears, but actually goes into the brain and then seeks into the subconscious. And when repetition is sunk into the subconscious, that's when we've mastered it. So when it comes to meditation, when you're actually freeing your mind, the first thing you need to do in meditation is free your mind, because you cannot concentrate on anything if your mind is constantly filled with the thoughts of the day and all the things that you need to do. And I'm speaking from experiences. There have been many times when I've tried to go into meditation and I'm just thinking about all of the things that happen throughout the day, all of the things that I need to do, me needing to go to the supermarket, me needing to wash clothes. And so you just sit there and you have to allow those thoughts to just come out. You cannot control them. So you have to allow everything that's in there to just come out, and then you will find that your mind is clear. And then when your mind is clear, that's when you deliberately begin to focus on the exact thing that you want to focus on. That's when you begin to visualize that's when you begin to focus on seeing the manifestation of the goals that you've set. So you're actually passing from the natural realm into the spirit realm. And from experience, it is a beautiful feeling once you are just elevated spiritually from the natural plane until you go up into that spiritual plane where you're still meditating and you're still visualizing, but you're actually taken higher to the place where you are actually in the end result of your goals that you have set to accomplish. And so when you're able to go there spiritually, then it passes over into your subconscious mind, and it becomes a matter of time before you're able to experience the manifestation of those things that you've already experienced from a spiritual and a mental level.
I love how you have no idea how you are lifting my vibes up just from what you're saying, especially from the point of view. Everything you said was great, but the awareness that people need to know is to raise their vibrational level so they experience in their mind what they say they want, to really have a full experience of that and also be appreciative of it, right? I chose the place where I live. I chose to be here because I'm surrounded by 4 radio towers. And the reason that aside from, I love the location, aside from that, when I saw the 4 radio towers, it was to me a reminder of my vibrations to receive and give. The towers are made of metal and wire. They themselves don't do anything, like you said about the brain. They are the material forces, but it's the energy and the vibrational forces that go to the channels, that go to the radios that are received, and I get to listen to them. So it's always for me a constant reminder about what's my vibration that I'm putting out. What is it that I'm putting out so that I'm reaching my perfect client, so that I'm reaching my perfect path? How do you make sure that you are vibrationally in tune to where you want to go? What are some of the maybe 1 or 2 things that you do on a daily basis or throughout the day to ensure that you are vibrationally aligned with your path and, of course, where the divine has guided you?
Well, one of the things that I do actually emanated from being in MasterMind. Those of you that are in MasterMind groups, if you're not doing this, it is very important that you do it as a part of a MasterMind group. One of the foundational things that need to be done is to write an affirmation. And it can be arduous because it requires a lot of thinking. You are writing an affirmation about who it is that you want to be and do and have. And so once you perfect that affirmation, you are to repeat it on a daily basis. You may not have reached that level of self-actualization as yet. You are affirming who it is that you want to be and do and what you want to achieve. Hence the term affirmation. So you write that affirmation, and it can take many days. It can take many, many hours, because you're really thinking hard about who is it that I want to be? Who is it that I want other people to see me as? What kind of character do I want to have and portray and exhibit? And once that affirmation is done, when you're in your mastermind group, before you give your report, you need to read your affirmation. Aside of your mastermind group on a daily basis, one of the first things that needs to be done in the mornings, or when you get in the car, when you get to work, is you need to read that affirmation. And when you read that affirmation on a daily basis, then when you go about your day and you're interacting and you're having conversations with people, if you do or say something that is not in alignment with who you say you are, you're immediately convicted, and then you're less inclined to repeat that behavior again. So when you repeat your affirmation, it sinks into your subconsciousness, and your subconsciousness goes to work to bring about the fruition of who it is that you say you want to be. So that is one of the things that can actually raise the level of your energy to put you in alignment with taking you higher as a person by repeating that affirmation on a daily basis.
Love that. And I am I'm a huge doer of that and believer of that. And, I know that you feel the same way I do. Is I said, would you all just do that? Would you all, like, of all the steps, would you all just do that? Would make you receive ways beyond your wildest imagination. So Dr. Mia, I'm falling in love with you every single moment. I could go on and on and on. And Peter just knows that I could go on and on and on. Peter, are we going to bring Galen into this conversation?
Yeah, we got to bring him in. I'm thinking about affirmations, and I know he does a lot of affirmations, recites a lot of affirmations. I've heard a lot of his affirmations. So Galen, if you could bring in your questions for Mia here, especially, we've really gone into depth on this brain versus mind thing. This is actually has me going deeper in there to reflect on that even more. What do you think about it there, Galen?
Yeah, I love the distinction as you raised earlier, Dr. Peter. I love the distinction that Dr. Mia, all these doctors on the show today, I love it, made between the physical brain and this mind, which is not physical. It's still a thing, but it's not a physical thing. And so, Dr. Mia, my question to you really does go to this idea of choice, because it really comes down to a choice. You can have a thought, and if you choose not to act on the thought, then it was just something interesting, right?
Yes.
What do you do? How do you encourage people to act on these thoughts that the brain receives that are in alignment with who they say that they want to be, as opposed to just finding it amusing, letting it pass? Because obviously, to achieve the things that you have, it took some action. You didn't just sit in your lounge and just think and just meditate. You took action. How do you encourage people to take action?
Well, it all boils down to desire. It's, how much they want to change their lives. We are discussing the chapter on the brain, and in that chapter, somewhere in that chapter, it says positive and negative emotions cannot occupy the mind at the same time. One must dominate. So it is your responsibility to make sure that positive thoughts constitutes the dominating factor of your mind. So when people don't understand, but when they come into the knowledge of the fact that they can control their mind, then they have the authority to be able to dismiss any unwanted elements that might reach their minds as a result of their neglect. because within that chapter, it talks about how we all feed off of the brains of other people. And when it comes to ideas, it's also in that book, somewhere in that book, probably within that chapter, it says most ideas are stillborn. And ideas that come to us are stillborn, but we must breathe life into those ideas in order to make them come into fruition. We need to breathe the breath of life into them to make them come into fruition. Ideas come to everybody. How many of us can say, I had an idea 5 years ago, it was a great idea, and then 5 years later, somebody else is making millions and millions of dollars off of the idea that came to you? You know what happened? You didn't act on it. So that idea, when ideas are released, they are not just released to you. They are released into the world. Whoever acts on it, takes it, not only thinks about it, and not only resonates on it, but actually begins to put action towards it. They are the ones that get the reward. So people who actually want to take their lives higher, they need to think about what they think about. And when negative thoughts enter their mind, they can immediately say, that's not the type of thought that I want to entertain. I don't want that to fester, because anything that festers and you actually entertain it, it'll come again and it'll look for an outlet of expression. And if it is a negative thought, then the end result of that is not going to be good. So you need to stop it at the root. So when that negative thought comes to you, you dismiss it. Negative thoughts come to all of us. Perverted thinking comes to all of us. You know, I could be talking to a very handsome, nice looking man about something very, important and serious. And he's talking to me about something that needs to be done. And my mind is elsewhere. And then I need to quote the Bible and say, I cast down imagination and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge of God, and redirect myself to the subject at hand. So I say that to say negative thoughts comes to all of us. We have to recognize it and dismiss it and focus only on the positive, so that when it's time for an outlet of expression, we will reap the benefits of actually giving attention to those positive thoughts or acting on those ideas that has reached us, so that we can get the reward from those things that have come to our minds.
I've got one more thing I'd love to get your thoughts on, because as I was listening to you, I kept reflecting on stories that Miss Ann tells about how she used to talk about things that she was going to do, and I'm going to use that phrase, things that she was going to do someday. And her mastermind just said, look, either do it or stop talking about it. So for me, when I was listening to you, I was just thinking about the responsibility of being in a mastermind with someone. And I'm going to quote one of my mastermind members. And she said that we all forget who we are from time to time. And there's a responsibility of your closest friends to remind you of who you are. So talk a little bit about the responsibility of committing to be in mastermind with someone.
Yeah, we have to understand that being in a mastermind group is like a business. You have to hold people accountable. I was actually in Ann's mastermind group, and I was there that day when she was called on the carpet. She was actually told, every week you come here with this same goal. When are you going to do something about it? So I was actually there, and I know who the person was that actually called her on the carpet about that. When you are in a mastermind group, you have to hold people accountable. It's not about friendships. It's not about being kind and being nice and socializing. It is about making sure that everyone accomplishes their goal. I have a responsibility to make sure that I can do all I can to help you accomplish your goal. Because we are entrusting each other, it is a circle of trust. I am sharing with you my deepest dreams and my aspirations and the things that I want to do. That's not something I share with the world or something I share with acquaintances. So when you trust me enough to share with me what your aspirations are and what you desire to do, then as a mastermind partner, it is my responsibility to hold you to task, to do what you need to do to accomplish this goal. And that's what people need to understand. It's not about trying to start or you're picking on me. No, it's about holding you accountable. You said you were going to accomplish this, and it's been 6 months and you've not done one thing towards this accomplishment. What are you going to do? You either need to start working on this goal, or you need to go back and revisit the goals that you've set. So people need to understand that a mastermind group is serious. Jesus had a mastermind group. It was the disciples, and he held them to task, and they were accountable. There was one man that said, can you promise that, my 2 sons will sit with you on the throne, one on the right and one on the left? And Jesus said, well, do you know what you're asking? Can your sons go through and drink the cup that I'm going to drink? Are they going to be able to go through what I'm going to go through in order to be able to sit on my right and on my left? So you have to be able to hold people to task.
Peter, you better jump in here, man.
Good stuff. Hey, I want to keep us all here together as we go ahead and start reflecting. And Mia, if you could, I know you've been at these annual meetings that we have on a regular basis. It's November now, and January is coming around very, very quickly. Mia, can you give us a quick snapshot of how this mastermind, this accountability has benefited you from an annual meeting perspective?
Yes. It is a time when you are able to see basically all of the mastermind groups together, because this was Anne's vision, and one of her mastermind goals was to start an international mastermind association. So Anne has mastermind groups not only all over this country, but outside of the country as well, in other countries. Anne has mastermind groups. So when you are at the annual meeting, you're able to see all of the other mastermind groups and what they're doing, and how they run their mastermind groups. And then you have new people that are there that get very excited about having a blueprint for success and having cheerleaders in the form of mastermind accountability partners that will help them to accomplish their goals. So the annual meeting is just a meeting where you reflect over the entire year, everything that you've accomplished in all of the categories. And then while at the annual meeting, after you reflect on the goals that you did accomplish, the goals that you may not have fully accomplished that you're carrying over, you're also starting over and setting the goals for the upcoming year. So the annual meeting is a meeting that is beneficial for all who are there.
Thank you so much there, Mia. I love it because it's an opportunity for me to begin again, reflect on how last few years have went, but also the opportunity to plan and strategize for the new year, and actually for my future as well, and my family's future as well. So as I bring everybody back in, I'm going to ask you all, as we get near to our close, I want to ask you first, are you going to be at our annual meeting? 1, 2, tell us how we can stay in touch with you. What are some things going on in your world? And let's see if we can start off with Pegeen.
Yeah, I'm still holding on to Dr. Merritt's idea of accountability, being able to hold yourself. You said you were going to do this. Have you done that? And that's why I'm going to the International Masterminders in January, and why I'm encouraging my own mastermind to show up, to be there, because I think that it's so critically important to have that. I also know the power of having constant affirmations and good messages coming and flowing into your brain. So I always encourage everybody to join Pegeen.club, CLUB, which is, you get daily motivations from me on business, leadership, confidence, sales, prosperity, and of course, motivation, that you get that infused in you this is a paid portal, and it's totally for you to get that constant daily pump up that you need to do. I know that this is for me a pump up experience. Dr. Mia, you got me. You got me, my soul, my heart, my brain, my mind. So thank you so much. I'm going to pass it over to Galen. Galen, what say you about how we get in contact with you?
Well, first of all, let me talk a little bit about that annual meeting, because the first annual meeting that I ever went to, that's when I was first exposed to Dr. Mia. And I was like, oh my gosh, who is this woman? And what is this energy that she has? And as impressed as I was with hearing from her, everyone that followed her had that same kind of energy. So I am definitely going to be at the annual meeting. I hope to see you there as well if you're listening or watching this broadcast. One of the things that I do that I am just really, really excited about is I share with people access to my friends, people who I know who have they've gone farther down the path of success, and I share with them principles from their lives, and we just have conversations. I think some of the best conversations I've had have been over a glass of whiskey while we're listening to jazz. So I invite everyone to join me on my podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership, on absolutely every platform where you may consume podcasts. It's real talk that you can't find anywhere else. I double dog dare you to try at least once, because I guarantee you will get something out of it, even if it's just a good time. So with that, I want to turn this over to Ms. Ann. What did you get out of this conversation, and how can people get a hold of you?
Well, first I want to say that if we can pull the JPEG up just one more time, please, for the annual. The dates are January the 7th and the 8th, and we will be at the Embassy Suites in Boca. Seats are limited because of COVID. Please register, because we do not want to turn you away when you get there and tell you, I'm sorry, there's no more space. So you can remove that, but just please register early and bring your entire family. We didn't get to talk about the children, and we'll do that another day. Actually, we'll have the children on, the mastermind children. We'll have them on before the annual meeting, and encourage you to understand why it's so important to start early. That's first. But again, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Wealth Builder. And you can connect with me through my retreat. We have sold out for the 3-day retreat, but the 1-day island retreat, the McNeil Factor, is still open, and is taking place actually is next week. So if you're interested in learning how to exercise a lot of what you've heard here over and over and over again, you can click this link and go to annmcneil.com/coaching, and we'll make sure we put the link in the chat. But my aha, Mia, from today, I have so many, but the one that sticks out in my mind more than the rest is the fact that you said stillborn. Now, I've heard that and I've read it, but what I saw this time is that the thoughts and ideas are still born, 2 separate words. But if you don't do anything with them, they become stillborn, 1 word. And so that was my major. I have 2 pages of notes. I'm not going to go through them, but I do want to encourage our listeners to think about this. You've heard the excitement from Mia and the fact that she and I've masterminded, at least over 20 years together. You can do this, but you must have a dream in order to have a dream come true, or this does not work for you. And you start with that desire in the first chapter. So it has been a phenomenal show. Please remember to comment, like, and share this show. Please remember, comment, like, and share the show. All right, Peter?
comment, like, and share. Mia, thank you so much for being our distinguished guest today. But before you go, how do we stay in touch with you moving forward?
You can reach me at 1-800-669-3604. That's 1-800-669-3604. Or you can reach me by email. That's Merritt, Mia at yahoo.com, 2 R's, 2 T's. My last name and first name together, Merritt, Mia at yahoo.com. And it's also at the bottom of the screen.
Thank you so much, Mia. It was such a phenomenal conversation today around this brain chapter, allowing us to go deeply into what this means to the text, Think and Grow Rich overall, but also individually to us and how we are utilizing our brain effectively versus our mind, how we are diving into our thought processes, what are our stillborn ideas, so much stuff that has been brought to our attention that we really need to reflect on. And of course, the annual meeting that now, again, we're here in November. If you have not registered for the annual meeting yet, you need to, like today. My name is Dr. Peter A. James. I am the high performance coach helping you to shift your mindset. You can find me on any social media platform at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames. You all are such a valuable part of this show. So you have to come back next week because we have another special guest here that we're going to be providing. And that is none other than Mr. Ron Williams, who we're going to continue this conversation on the brain. So as we conclude, any final thoughts from our guest, from our host, as we finish up? What did we miss today there? Anybody?
You know,
I don't think. I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead,
don't know that
Mia.
we missed anything, but I do know that we elevated massively. And I do know that I could see from my friends here is that there's a lot of thought going on. There's a lot of awareness at a deeper level about why we have to do our declarations and affirmations and why we have to people to call us out, because I love that the sense of, you could have your affirmations, you could say it over and over and over again, but if nobody says, you've been talking about the same thing for the last 20 years, when are you going to do it? Because if you don't have that piece, then what you're saying, and what I got from Mia was, then what you're saying is a rote affirmation that is meaningless to your vibrations.
Good stuff. Ann McNeil, you were saying something.
I think this is an excellent example of the operation of the mind, the brain, the thoughts, and the action or the lack thereof. And so anybody listening to this show and not understanding why your goals are not being achieved, I would encourage you, watch the show over and over and over again. But like you've heard, take action. Mia, you left nothing to be desired. Let me say that, my friend. You left absolutely nothing to be desired.
And if you have not picked up a copy of Think and Grow Rich yet, please do so ASAP. Mia, Galen, and Pegeen, we'll see you very soon. Actually, some of
But
you I'll see next week.
Peter, before you go, I think Mia was trying to say something before.
Oh, sorry, Mia.
Pegeen started. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to say thank you all so much for having me on the show. I'm very humbled and I'm very grateful. Thank you, Dr. Peter. Thank you, Pegeen and Galen, and a big thank you to Ann McNeil, who continues to elevate and just remain the poster child for all of us. So thank you so much for having me on the show.
Thank you
Can
all.
I just, before you go in, I'm just going to put in, just to let everybody know, I'm going to be putting in the chat below how to get some of Dr. Mia's books, because I just did a little search about your books. And I think that it's really valuable for people to know that you're available.
Well, I actually talk about the mind and the brain in Prosperity is Your Birthright. That's
And
there's a whole chapter dedicated to that. I just gave you all the abbreviated version, but in Prosperity is Your Birthright, I talk about it in that book.
loving it. And I love everything that you have here. Thank you.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
so
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. Again, Mia, thank you so much. Everyone who's listening, everyone who's watching, same time this next week, Saturday, same channel. We'll see you then. Take care.
Bye-bye. Period. I cannot publish the book without a cover.
And smile because we're still on live.